The sun began its descent, bathing the skyline in hues of amber and pink, as a serene housing complex stood tucked away from the bustling city streets. Known for its exclusivity, the enclave boasted manicured lawns, modern architecture, and a central gem, a shimmering pool reflecting the fading sunlight. It was a retreat for those who had carved their own paths to success, a sanctuary from the chaos of the world. On a plush recliner near the pool, Caleb Brooks, a 34-year-old self-made entrepreneur, stretched out with an air of calm. Dressed casually in a plain hoodie and joggers, Caleb could have easily been mistaken for anyone but the multimillionaire he was. His journey to this tranquil moment had been anything but ordinary, filled with grit, determination, and countless obstacles that had shaped him into the man he had become. Caleb had grown accustomed to breaking expectations. As a young black man in the tech world, he had faced challenges that were as systemic as they were personal. But those hurdles had only fueled his resolve, culminating in the creation of a thriving software company that now stood as a leader in its field. The home he now owned in this elite complex was more than a luxury. It was a symbol of resilience, a testament to his unwavering drive. With a novel resting on his lap and a glass of iced tea on the side table, Caleb soaked in the moment. The soft swish of palm fronds in the breeze and the gentle ripples of the pool water were a welcome reprieve from the demanding world he often inhabited. He exhaled deeply, letting the quiet settle around him like a comforting blanket. That peace, however, was abruptly disrupted by the sharp clack of high heels on the stone pavement. Caleb opened his eyes, curious but unbothered, as a woman approached. She appeared to be in her early 50s, impeccably dressed in a tailored outfit, with a toy-sized dog peeking out of her designer tote. Everything about her screamed privilege, from her oversized sunglasses to the assertive tilt of her chin. "Excuse me," she snapped, her tone clipped and authoritative, as if addressing an employee. Caleb shifted his gaze to her, his expression neutral. "This area is for residents only. You shouldn't be here." Caleb tilted his head, surprised by the abruptness of her accusation. "I am a resident," he replied calmly, sitting up straight. The woman scoffed, her laugh sharp and disbelieving. "I've lived here for years," she declared, her hand on her hip. "I've never seen you before. And frankly, someone like you doesn't belong here." The implication behind her words hung in the air, but Caleb didn't let his calm demeanor falter. "I've been here for over a year," he said evenly, his voice steady. "Perhaps we just haven't crossed paths?" She wasn't convinced. Pulling out her phone, she began snapping photos of him as if documenting a crime. "Security will sort this out," she said smugly. "We can't have strangers loitering around. You understand, of course." Caleb raised an eyebrow, more amused than angry at the spectacle she was creating. A few neighbors had emerged from their homes, drawn by the commotion. Some lingered on the sidelines, hesitant, while others pretended to busy themselves with anything but the unfolding scene. "Ma'am," Caleb began, his voice patient yet firm, "there's been a misunderstanding. I don't think security is necessary." But she was undeterred. "Oh, I think it is. I'm doing everyone here a favor," she barked, her entitlement unwavering. Realizing that reasoning with her would be futile, Caleb pulled out his own phone. With a few taps, he opened the community's app, which held records for all residents, including their property deeds. Standing up slowly, he turned the screen toward her and the small crowd that had gathered. "This," he said, his voice calm but authoritative, "is my name, Caleb Brooks, and this is my unit, which I own outright. Feel free to double-check." The smug expression on the woman's face faltered as her eyes darted to the screen. The undeniable proof stared back at her, unraveling her confidence. She stammered, her voice shaky. I didn't realize." "I can see that," Caleb interrupted, his tone still measured. "But perhaps next time, instead of jumping to conclusions, you could take a moment to consider the possibility that not everyone who lives here looks the same or fits your expectations." A murmur rippled through the small crowd. Some neighbors nodded subtly, their discomfort palpable. The woman's bravado crumbled entirely as she realized she had no defense for her actions. She clutched her dog tightly, avoiding eye contact with Caleb and the onlookers. I'll, I'll just be going now, she muttered, her retreat hurried and awkward. Caleb watched her leave, his expression unreadable. He turned to the remaining neighbors, some of whom offered him apologetic looks. With a small nod, he gathered his belongings and walked toward his home, leaving the moment and the judgment behind him. The quietness returned to the poolside after the woman's hasty retreat, but the air still felt heavy with unspoken words and lingering tension. Caleb stood there for a moment, his gaze sweeping over the small gathering of neighbors who had witnessed the scene. Some shifted uncomfortably, while others seemed to contemplate their own roles in what had just unfolded. He could tell that the moment was a pivotal one, not just for him, but for this tight-knit community. With a deep breath, Caleb decided to address the onlookers. He wasn't one to seek attention, but he knew that ignoring the situation would only allow assumptions to fester. I know that wasn't comfortable for anyone to witness, he began, his voice calm yet resolute. But moments like this are important, not just for me, but for all of us as neighbors. The small crowd seemed to collectively lean in, drawn to the sincerity in his tone. Caleb continued, "We all come from different walks of life, and we've worked hard to be here. That should be something that connects us, not divides us. I hope today is a reminder that assumptions based on appearances can do more harm than good." His words hung in the air, resonating deeply with many of those present. A few nodded in agreement, while others muttered quiet apologies. An older man, who had been watching silently from the edge of the group, stepped forward and extended his hand. "Caleb, I've seen you around, but we've never properly met," he said with a warm smile. "I'm James. Welcome to the neighborhood. Though it seems I'm late in saying that." Caleb accepted the handshake, his own smile breaking through. The gesture was small but meaningful, signaling a shift in the atmosphere. Others followed suit, introducing themselves and engaging Caleb in friendly conversation. It was a stark contrast to the confrontation moments earlier, and Caleb felt the tension begin to dissipate, replaced by a tentative camaraderie. As the group dispersed, Caleb returned to his recliner, though the tranquility of the earlier moment was now replaced by a swirl of thoughts. The incident had been exhausting, yes, but it had also opened the door for something more profound. The chance to forge connections and perhaps even reshape perceptions within this exclusive community. Later that evening, as the sun finally dipped below the horizon, Caleb reflected on the day. He didn't dwell on the woman's hostility or the assumptions she'd made about him. Instead, he focused on what the experience had revealed about his own strength and resilience. This wasn't the first time he'd faced prejudice, and it likely wouldn't be the last. But every encounter reminded him of why his success mattered, not just for himself, but for others who might look to him as a beacon of possibility. Caleb knew that real change didn't happen overnight. But as he sat on the balcony of his home, gazing out at the twinkling city lights, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. His presence in spaces like this wasn't just a personal victory. It was a statement, a challenge to outdated norms and biases. And most importantly, a reminder that progress came from persistence, not perfection. The next morning, Caleb decided to take things a step further. He reached out to the housing complex's community board, proposing a series of neighborhood gatherings aimed at fostering inclusivity and connection among residents. The idea was met with enthusiasm, and within weeks, the first event, a casual meet and greet by the pool, was underway. Caleb was heartened to see the turnout, including some faces he hadn't expected, like the woman who had confronted him. She approached him hesitantly during the event, her demeanor markedly different. "I owe you an apology," she said, her voice soft. "I was wrong to judge you, and I'm sorry for how I acted." Caleb nodded, his expression kind but firm. "Thank you for saying that," he replied. "What matters now is that we all move forward with more understanding,